Craig Shemin is an award-winning and Emmy-nominated freelance writer, producer, and director. And he is the president of the Jim Henson Legacy, a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving and celebrating the work of Jim Henson. His book is Sam and Friends, the story of Jim Henson's first television show. Welcome to our city tonight, Craig.
Thank you, Lita. It's great to be with you.
Oh, when I saw the title of this book, it jumped off the screen to me, and I have to ask right off the bat, am I correct to say that most people do not know that there was an actual show that Jim Henson had before Sesame Street?
That's really true. Jim Henson's career to most people started with Sesame Street, even though he had already been working for 15 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, this book is indeed an examination of what you call the unfiltered art of Jim Henson. And this artwork and the puppets were created long before he had dozens of people working for him. Tell us a little bit about how that went.
Well, I started working at the Henson Company in the late 80s, only a couple of years before Jim Henson passed away. And by that time, he had other people to write the shows and to build the puppets. And he was basically producing, directing, performing. But when you look back at the Sam and Friends era, he and his then girlfriend, soon to be wife, Jane Nebel, later Jane Henson, they did everything, and so Jim was building the sets and writing the scripts and building the puppets. And Jane built some of the puppets too.
Yeah, what was fascinating is that probably, again, reading this book, most people didn't know. Jim was so driven even early on. He was in high school still when he started this show, Sam and Friends. And as you mentioned, his wife, Jane, was very much a part of that. Can you tell us a little bit more for our viewers, Jane's participation in this?
Well, when I first started doing the research, I knew Jane for several years, ever since I started working at the company. And she would always downplay her role in Jim's work. And then I started to do research, and she, begrudgingly started to admit things like she built some of the puppets. She would say, well, for every 3 puppets Jim built, I maybe built 1, And she, when I started going through the papers that were in the archives, when they started the company, it was a partnership. Jim had 60% of the stock and she had 40%. And Jane used to describe herself as a helper. And a helper doesn't get 40% of a partnership. She had a very significant role, and she always downplayed it.
Yeah, she sounds like a fascinating person. It's so cool that you met her. Now, music played a huge part in Sam and Friends before the characters were actually given voices. Can you share a few of the very, very well-known musical artists that were a part of Sam and Friends?
Yeah, Jim would either use very distinct comedy songs, novelty songs like Stan Freberg or Phil Harris. And he would also use just pop songs of the day, like Rosemary Clooney's I've Grown Accustomed to Your Face. So he would go through the music library, because the TV station also had a radio station. So they had a vast record library, and he and Jane would go through it with the record librarian at WRC, and they'd pick the songs. And in the beginning, they would just lip sync to the music. And then over time, Jim got more comfortable doing voices. So he started writing scripts. I actually have another book coming out that compiles some of these early scripts. That'll be out in September.
Fascinating. Well, he was on Ed Sullivan a lot. My co-host Jim pointed that out. He said, I saw the Muppets a lot on Ed Sullivan in the black and white. But also, I remember reading in your book, Jim didn't like that transition. Well, I guess he was a bit resistant from the black and white to the color. I think that caused,
Jane told me that Jim liked working in black and white and shades of gray. And he, everybody was very excited about working in color, because this was early television. But Jim liked black and white. So he kind of grumbled a little bit about, having to do everything in color, but it ended up, doing very well. In fact, a lot of surviving clips from the early days are in black and white, even though they were broadcast in color. They didn't have a way of really capturing color broadcasts yet.
The other
So I have to
fascinating
remind people to think in color.
Yeah, totally. The other fascinating part is Jim didn't set out to become a puppeteer. It all was by accident. Tell us, we're going to end on that little story.
Yeah. He really didn't want to be a puppeteer at all. He didn't think about it. He wanted to work in television. And there was a local station that was looking for a young puppet performer to do a show. And he saw that as his way in. So he got books from the library, taught himself how to build puppets, and just showed up for the audition because, he couldn't care less about puppets. He wanted to work in TV because he thought it was so exciting.
Well, he definitely changed the whole area of puppets. He's known as the main puppet guy in the world, and we're so thankful that he took that chance. Your new book, when is that coming out?
That'll be out September 24th, which is Jim Henson's birthday. And that's called the Sam & Friends script book, the same
Wonderful.
publisher, Bear Manor.
Well, Sam, hey, last question for Craig is your wife was a Muppet character voice.
She still is. And I have to say that we always try to say that they're performers because they do the manipulation as well as the voice. But my wife has been working on Sesame Street for more than 30 years, and she was in the original cast of Avenue Q on Broadway. So she is always a great inspiration and reminder to me of the great artistry of puppetry and performance.
Wonderful. Well, we have to thank Jim Henson from the bottom of our hearts. I grew up as a Muppet viewer. My family around the TV, and Sesame Street was definitely a part of my childhood. So we have Sam & Friends by Craig Shemin. Amazing book for those of you that are, well, I would say everybody interested in the story behind those world famous Muppets from Sesame Street. So we have Sam & Friends. Thanks, Craig. I appreciate it.
Thank you.